Thank you.
Excellent. So how's everybody today?
Doing good.
Right.
Excellent. Good, very good. So did everybody have a chance to look at the minutes that Adrian sent out?
Yes.
Fantastic. Any questions about those?
So, Randy, can I interrupt? We should do, actually, could we do a roll call first, and then I'll pop up the minutes on the screen. I know I didn't give very much warning for those, so I could let people skim through them. Okay.
So I know that I'm here. I know that Melanie's here. Fritz is here. Jane is here. There's Jane. I don't think Stephen is here yet. Danny is here. Lily is here. And Vacant is not here.
One day. We'll get that filled.
We will. And so back to the minutes. Did anybody have any questions or comments about the minutes? Oh, I guess, and also, is Renee going to join us?
Here we go. Renee just joined.
Excellent.
So does anybody need me to go through scroll through the whole minutes slowly? Do you want me to do that? I'm seeing no. It's okay to say yes because it's my fault I didn't give you as much time as I should have. No? Okay. All right.
Excellent. Can I get a motion to approve those minutes?
I move to approve the minutes.
Excellent. Fritz, thank you. And can I get a second?
I'll second that.
Jane is seconding. And all in favor, please say aye.
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 All those
Aye.
opposed? We have no opposed, so the minutes are approved. Thank you. And now we can, way ahead of schedule, move up to library updates with Adrian. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Randy. Yeah, we're doing great on time. Okay, so library updates. We were chatting about this before we officially started recording. Big thank you to everybody here who participated in the preview days. A number of you were there on Friday or earlier in the week, and I just really appreciate that you had a chance to come in and see it. And we got some really great feedback. Really helped us to see also how the space was being used and how we could shift things just a little bit. I mean, I don't think you would notice a difference, but in terms of how staff might be scheduled or where we might put a certain stanchion base or, that kind of thing, there's some little minor adjustments. Mostly, I just want to say a big thank you for taking time out of your day to do that and giving us the feedback. We had our first reopening afternoon. It's actually going on right now. So at 2:00, we opened the doors. So same doors that you went through the lobby doors on the parking lot side. And we're open until 5:00. At 2:00, we're like, are we gonna be having this long queue of people because we had sent out an email to just under 100 people with current holds, and we're sending, actually it ended up being about 150 people. Yeah. So we had 350 people as of a couple days ago who had current holds, and we're dividing that list into thirds and inviting them in stages so that they don't all show up the same day. Now, granted, I don't know what percentage of those people are available from 2 to 5 p.m., on a Tuesday, a Wednesday, a Thursday, or a Saturday. But we had a very soft reopening, just like we had hoped. We actually had more people on Friday. When those of you who were there on Friday for reopening, we had 11 people, or 10. Actually, I think we had one person who couldn't make it. We had more then, right at the beginning, than we did just now, which I think is good because it lets us as staff kind of get used to it, and then we'll invite more and more people as we go. So the big promotion will be on Monday. It is on the public website now. It is on our phone message. It's public information, so if you are asked a direct question or if you want to, share that news, that's fine. But we just don't want to spread it out really widely quite yet. And then other libraries in the county are opening, either doing their soft opening, like their preview days this week, or their soft opening, or their more advertised opening this week too. So it's nice to see that happening. Hi, Melanie. What's your question?
My question is, I was just curious, do you have to have a hold in order to come in and use those services, or can you just come in?
You can just come in. That's a great question. So right now we just wanted to start with the people who have holds, just to kind of give them the first chance to know that information, since we know they have a reason to come in, and it's a small group. Pardon me, but for hold pickup, you can either go to curbside or you can come inside. For non-hold pickup, but just to pick up things, you can still go to curbside and just do book bundles through the window, or come inside and browse. So
Okay.
either works for either. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Let's see. I think any questions about preview days or the reopen. I'll talk more about reopening a little bit, but in terms of the preview days, anybody else have questions about those? No? Okay. So as you know, at our last meeting, when I was looking at the minutes, I'm like, oh my goodness, so much has changed in a month. At the minutes, we were in moderate. We didn't expect to go back to high necessarily. We knew that was a possibility, but at that point, it didn't seem imminent. So we were planning more hours for express services, slightly more people, just a bigger kind of reopening, not that much bigger, but some. As it turned out, of course, we were getting hints along the way that we were progressing towards high. And so we modified that plan, as you know, to work for high or moderate. So my best guess, based on our Washington County being at high, and assuming we stay at high for at least a while, is that we'll just probably keep status quo, keep these hours that we've selected, keep the numbers that we've selected for a while. Most likely the first thing to change would be to add, instead of it being just 15 people at a time, add there. That's the easiest thing for us to do too, we don't have to change staff schedules to do that. And then we have a series of different schedule expansions that we hope to do, and I'll actually talk more about that when we get to the strategic planning section. So we all feel good about it. And then meanwhile, more and more staff, everybody now is eligible to be vaccinated, and more staff have made that decision and just feeling more comfortable about it too, for reopening. Whereas back a few months ago, nobody on staff had vaccinations yet, and it's a very different thing to talk about reopening and what that would mean. So I guess high risk is like it didn't change our plan very significantly. This is what I really want to say there. Any questions about OLA that's my next topic. Any questions about high risk or the reopening for express services? Okay. And then I wanted to mention, so the OLA conference, you've all been invited to. It started this week. I don't know if those of you who intended to register, if you have registered, you should be getting emails from either Shirley Robertson or they might look like they're coming from Whova, WHOVA. If you didn't get any of those yesterday or today, maybe check your junk email, because there were some just little technical difficulties that they realized were happening the first day of the conference. Like, oh, it helps if you do it this way. It helps if you click that button when you're getting online, and so on. So you can join either from the app, if you have a device where you've installed the Whova app, or you use the Whova website, but it doesn't work to just do whova.com or look up Whova. You actually have to log into Whova with the email that you registered and put in a code, and you have to authorize it and so on. So just if you haven't done that step yet and you're hoping to attend something, give yourself that little buffer of time to get all set up. So even on your desktop, you need to install the Whova. They call it an app, but it still just looks like a website. Does that make sense? I did attend part of it, most of them I'm going to have to watch the recordings, and the recordings are lagging about 24 hours behind or so. They're saying 24 to 48, but all of yesterday's stuff showed up this morning for the recordings. And I did catch the last half or 2/3 of today's keynote speaker, and that was really great. I really recommend that. That was Sonia Irvin from Multnomah County Public Library, and she's there. Let's see. She's like the equity, diversity, and inclusion coordinator, officer, something like that for the whole library system. I've heard her speak before, and she's really great. Let's see. And then the panel that I'm on is on Friday. So 10:45 to 11:45. Or no, 10:30. I got to get that right. But anyway, Friday, late morning. And I'm excited about that one too. That one's more for training for library staff, about EDI training, but it's been a really interesting and rewarding process to go through that. Let's see, and then I'm ready to move on to the next topic, but any questions about the conference before I do?
I do. Do you have to get the app to watch the recordings as well, the Whova app? Okay.
Yeah, everything is through Whova basically, and you have to show that you're an authorized participant. So, so either way, and you might hear that. So Zoom presenters are logging into Zoom, and then the Zoom screen is being shared in Whova. So as a participant, you really just focus on Whova. But I believe when you're logging in to see something, it might ask you about Zoom, and if Whova isn't working for you, you can join via Zoom, but it doesn't give you all the same content. You don't have access to the same, because the chat and the Q&A and any polls and extra stuff and all the slides that you might download, those are all happening in Whova.
Okay.
It's interesting though, because as so I've participated in a couple of the sessions, and the presenters keep referencing go into the Zoom chat box, but you can't get into the Zoom chat box from from what we're seeing. And so I don't know how some of the individuals were chatting, but they were putting their questions in the chat box. So there's a little bit of a disconnect between the presenters and the public, I guess, but the topics have been interesting.
Oh, that's good to hear. And I'm glad that you're participating, Renee. I'm gonna guess that the presenters are just slipping in their words because they're in Zoom and they're looking at Zoom and they just accidentally say Zoom because we've been using Zoom all along. I'm guessing they don't actually mean that's where they're going to look for it. I could be wrong. As a presenter myself, I'm like, oh, that's good. I need to make sure I don't accidentally say that. Do you mind sharing, Renee, what sessions you've participated in so far?
I've only done 2. I watched actually, I guess it's been the 2 keynote speakers. So yesterday's keynote and today's keynote. And then I think I'm signed up for a couple of other DEI tracks tomorrow and what is tomorrow? Tomorrow's Thursday, right? Tomorrow and Friday. I've only got a handful of them, but it's all centered on DEI for me, and because that way I can translate it into my work life as well as my volunteer life. So it's been good.
Nice. That's great. That's great. We'll have to figure out a way to do more of this next conference time too. I realized I didn't share my screen. I apologize. I meant to put the agenda up on the screen, so I'll do that now too. So, okay. Do you see the agenda there? Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any other comments on conference? Questions? Okay. So I have a big mea culpa. The user survey, I had said, oh, I want to have it up for National Library Week, and we're going to put it out, and I just couldn't get it done in time with everything else going on with the conference and reopening and moving to high and refiguring out all of that stuff, and I think it will be better in May anyway. So my plan is to still do that. I need to get you the revised version. Several of you wanted to see it one more time, and I still need to get that translated as well. So I'm thinking like mid-May, and then we could, hopefully we have more people coming inside then too, and we can promote it to patrons who are coming in. So I wanted to let you know, I haven't forgotten. I did fail on that, but I haven't forgotten. We'll get caught up in May. Following that confession with some good news, we did win an American Library Association grant. We were talking to you about that last time, so that feels really exciting. It's our first ALA grant. Crystal Garcia, who's here, and Jamie Thorson, our youth services librarian too, and Crystal's adult services librarian too. They both wrote that together. So congratulations to Crystal and to Jamie. It's transforming library communities. Crystal, I always forget what it's called. Is it transforming communities?
Yes, it's transforming communities.
There we go. Thank you. And so for $3,000, which may not seem a lot to you, but for us, that's a huge increase to our programming budget. And so we'll be able to do in the fall our very first community reads, kind of a community reads light type program. But that's where library will lead book discussions for different ages. Sometimes they just do adults and teens, or sometimes younger too. Ours will be adults and kind of upper school age teens. Both books on a theme of talking about race. And so we'll have staff-led book discussions, we'll have supplementary materials, there'll be free copies of the books, there'll be activities that go with them, there'll be like some journaling that goes with it, a number of different activities that will all be combined for this whole experience that will be in the fall. So that feels huge, not only because it's a national grant, but because also all of the work it represents to get to the point where we were grant worthy for that national grant, and to be laying the groundwork with the equity work that we've been doing, and the book discussions, and building the audience who is asking for that kind of programming and all that. So I'm so proud of everything that we've been doing. And we'll be sending out a press release on that here soon. So we found out several weeks ago, and then ALA said, don't tell anybody yet. And now they said we could start telling people. And so we'll be doing a press release to our email newsletter group and local media and so on very soon. And then my last topic there for updates is on meeting schedules. Any questions on anything so far before I keep going? Oh, okay. All right, so meeting schedules. I wanted to check base. Normally this time of year I do a reminder that we don't meet in June, we don't meet in August. And technically we kind of say, well, unless we really have something so big that we need to, but I think of it as bracketing the summer, that the first month of the summer and the last month of the summer, we don't have a meeting. That middle month we do. And then, so that's just a general reminder. I expect we'll continue online for quite some time through at least this summer. I don't know yet, like say for summer library events, we have some in-person events that we're planning for outside, but we're not planning any inside events yet. For me personally, and I know for a few of us that are either parents with students or like Lily being a student, we're very much tied to the changes that have been happening with the school schedule. And childcare for me, and some of the, well, I guess the two other members who have young kids aren't here tonight. But so personally, I could be ready to return to an evening schedule of 6 to 8:30 again for that July meeting, possibly the May meeting if people really felt like they wanted to, but I'm also happy to stick with 4 to 5:30. So I thought I'd share that, and you could think about it. Not everybody's here tonight, but I wonder if maybe we could just do a quick round robin and see. It's okay to say, I don't know, I need to check with, whomever, if you don't know your schedule, but if you know right now, if either works for you or if one works a lot better, if you could let me know, and I'll reach out to the others as well.
I'd much prefer evenings.
Okay. Thank you.
And Adrian, did you mean 6 to 7:30?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, we never used to meet for 2.5 hours. What did we used to do? We used to do, we used to do 6:30 to 8. That's my
Yeah.
typo. So 6:30 to 8 was the old time, which,
Correct.
in terms of recruiting new board members too and so on, there's just different people who are available during standard work hours or have the flexibility to flux their schedule versus kind of after standard work hours. The pros and cons to both. It's a lot harder for people with kids to do late at night. But anyway, I'll stop talking. Who wants to say? How about I'll just call in people.
Okay.
Randy, how about you?
I can definitely move back to 6:30 to 8 anytime.
Okay. Thank you. How about Renee?
I'm flexible. I've been going into work super early, so I kind of like the earlier time, but I'm open to whatever's best for the rest of the group, to be honest with you.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. Danny, how about you?
Similar to Renee, I mean, honestly, either time I can make work. So, yeah, it's 6 in one hand, half in a dozen the other. So I'm good either way.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Melanie, how about you?
The 4 to 5:30 works better for me, but I can make it work back in the evening, so that's not a problem. I won't be here in July, though. I'll be traveling.
Okay. Good reminder. I think that happened last July too, didn't it? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Lily, how about you?
Either one works for me, but once we enter the school year, it'll probably be better for me to do it a little bit later, though.
Okay. Okay, that's good to know. Fritz, how about you?
Either one works for me.
Okay. Here comes Stephen. Crystal, how about you? Hi, Stephen.
Either time works for me.
Okay. Stephen, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, good. Welcome.
Yeah, sorry,
So-
I'm late. Glad to be here.
Oh, yeah, glad you made it. We're actually at the point where I'm asking people about schedules. So I was saying, for me personally, I would have the flexibility to switch back to I have a typo in the agenda, but 6:30 to 8 p.m. schedule, our old schedule, I could do. I was talking about, should we start that in the summer? Our next meeting is May, but if we skip June, July would be our first summer meeting. I could possibly start it by May. So we were doing a round robin, and you're actually the last one. So we're wondering your thoughts on sticking with the 4 to 5:30 or potential availability for 6:30 to 8.
Yeah, actually, the new time would be my preference, but I can make either one work. So if I'm voting for one, I would say keep as is, but yeah, I can accommodate either.
Okay. That's helpful. Thank you. And so Vish isn't here. I don't know his preference yet. And so far, everybody said they could do either. Basically, we didn't say like how would you rank them. So I guess that could be something. But I think, was there anybody that I misunderstood and saying they really want to get out of 4 to 5:30, even though you've been coming?
I really want to get out of 4 to 5:30. Yes, I do.
Okay. And Jade is our vice chair. Okay, that's all helpful. Thank you, everyone. I'll get Vish's feedback. I'm thinking, we'll see if he says he can do either as well. I'm thinking it looks like we could switch to potentially the July meeting 6:30 to 8, or at least be knowing that we'll switch to that soon. Like, so after July, then we would skip August, and the next meeting would be September. And Lily, you were talking about how during school, the evening works better. So the latest we could switch should be September, I think. Seems like a long ways away, but it helps me to know when we're recruiting board members too, what we're asking of them. Yeah, okay. Super, thank you. So I'm done with library updates, and And then it's just me again on the
Just you
agenda.
again. Strategic focusing.
Okay, thank you. So I'll stop sharing this. And let me queue up a couple documents here. So we had a really nice strategic focusing page that we'd come up with. We had staff feedback on that. We had board feedback. A moment while I get that up on the screen. And it basically got us to the point we're at right now. So now that we're reopening, I feel like we need to revisit it. Let's see. There we go. Do you see the tried and true, our strategic focusing? Okay, good. So this was really meant to get us to the point of reopening. And now, granted, we reopened today at 2:00 in this very, minimal way, not very many people, but it's such a different place than we were back in the winter when we were working on this document. And so what I'd like to do is, as we intended to keep this a living document, is talk about how to update it. My recommendation is we think of it as a blank slate in a way. We revisit what were the categories, what work got done, what didn't get done, but also what else have we not been doing because we were just focused on the short term of getting to the point of reopening. So this was the visual reminder of what that was. We had distribution of physical materials, which this was also updated when we were in the freeze. Remember that, where we had to actually close curbside for a while, and so that was a top priority. Wi-Fi and technology, which there's still a number of things there that are priority for us. Services for seniors, which are obviously a priority, but also now that we're reopening and we can serve more people on site and we want to focus on expanding that, I think services for seniors might just get folded into the bigger work that we do. And then marketing really was on here to help us focus on getting the word out that we're still operating, we still had materials, we still had ebooks, all of that. So I want to share something else with you. Now, this was, you may recall, the one I just was showing you, that was the pretty version, but you might remember me showing a really boring spreadsheet that got us to the pretty version. So I have another really boring spreadsheet, possibly slightly less boring than last time. Let's see. Let me just see if I can get there. I'm going to share my screen. Do you see a spreadsheet? All right. Thank you. Okay, so this is similar as last time, and actually I'm just in Excel, so you can see my tabs down at the bottom. So last time, I'll go to, this was the boring spreadsheet from last time, where we had these categories. These turned into the strategic focus areas that we were talking about, and we had a discussion about your feedback and also with staff feedback, and that's what helped us form this. And then what I did is I went through and double checked everything, like have we accomplished those, what's still on the list, and what's in that backlog that we've been talking about all along, and also some of the backlog that I just know about because of talking with either staff, or it's best practice, or it's kind of the next logical step, and tried to put like a big data dump of here are all the big picture things to be working on. So categories that I have grouped things into, I have strategic planning and community engagement. That was really on hold during much of this. So I have a number of tasks and projects and so on related to that, and I'll talk about that in a moment. The other category is reopening. There's programming, there's also just generally expanding access. And then equity work, which there's a number of things we've been doing. Equity work was a big focus of our last strategic plan. And we had that folded in a little bit with the strategic focus areas that we had developed as a short gap, but not as much as we normally would. And so I wanted to bring forward some of the work that's kind of on, you know, I don't want to say back burner. That makes it sound like it's not a priority, but like, you know, stuff that I view is on our to-do list that we need to talk about bringing forward into our next priorities. And then access to technology is the last category. And I just chose colors just arbitrarily, really. I don't mean to say red is like, yikes. You know, they're just different colors to make it visually easier. Any questions so far? No? How's the size? I forgot to ask that. Is it legible? Is it all right? Okay.
Yeah, it's fine. We just can't see anything beyond staff capacity. I don't know if there's anything over there on the right.
Oh, no, that's as far as I had it. I have a blank column that says board feedback. Yeah.
I don't think it's boring. I don't want you to call it boring. I'm glad that we have a level of detail that has meaning. That's what's important to me.
Oh, good. Thank you,
not
Jade.
boring.
No,
I like the color. I want color. Yeah.
Good. Thank you.
Adrian, you are incredibly talented at this kind of stuff.
Oh, thank you. I like spreadsheets and organizing. Yeah.
Each time you go through this, I'm just like totally in awe of what you do with this with the spreadsheets. So that's not a talent of mine. So I'm always impressed.
Oh, thank you. I don't know if you can see I'm blushing. Look, I'm gonna match my lipstick here pretty soon. Thanks. I saw a T-shirt recently for sale that was like, I'm planning a spreadsheet while you're talking or something like that. So it was like, it was phrased slightly better than that. Like, oh, that's a great shirt. All right. So my plan was just to kind of walk through this next column, what I'm calling the work, because I think it's at varying levels of big and small and so on. But so that you kind of knew what I was thinking with it. And then once you have a bigger idea of that, we would talk about how we might synthesize it. I still need to present this also to staff. Almost everything on here has already been discussed, or it's just part of what we know is on our next docket. And so I started, for example, if we stuck with these categories, it could potentially look something like this. Trying to keep the color coding going. I haven't obviously finished it. And the order of these is not meant to be priority, although I was thinking from a patron perspective, they'd probably want it in this order, even though really I think strategic planning and community engagement has to be considered throughout the process. It's kind of the container that holds everything else. Okay, so under strategic planning, community engagement, for those of you that weren't part of the process last time, which I think actually, Randy, were you part of the strategic planning groups last time? Would that have been right when you were starting?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, okay. And then Renee, you were part of that, right? So I think you two are the only ones, and then Crystal and myself, of course. And so when we were doing strategic planning, we had a lot of material that we're bringing to the process that predated the actual strategic planning meetings. So like there was census data and community analysis and the user surveys and, we knew best practices and all the research and so on. And so that's why I put those things in this category. So then when we get to the point where we're with our focus groups and we're asking for opinions, we have a lot of material that we can share, and also that helps us know, well, who's in the community, who do we want represented, not who do we want, but like who do we need to make sure is represented in the process if there are groups that we may be, and there's new census data coming too, right? So I have the user survey. I put a column here for source that's more just for me to track, like, now why is that on this list? So that we would have been doing that anyway. It was actually postponed. And then I have a column estimated stages of the risk stage, of when it can start. And not to say that you can only do a user survey in high risk, but like meaning there's no reason we have to wait, whereas some of these things require the risk level to be lower. And then my best guess of when we would have staff capacity or the best time to do it. So we're in Q4 of our current fiscal year. All right, so then I've got the census data, analyzing that, other community data, some work that I would be asking for your help with too, and others that we know of that are considered stakeholders and groups that we work with, partners, making a list, literally making a list. Yes, Jane.
I worked on the U.S. Census in Sherwood. I was, a census taker. I was an enumerator. When do you really think you're going to hear this information?
Well, I know, for example, there is a free class, census data for librarians, that's next month. And
Good.
so I'm planning to attend that. I don't know how much of the data is released yet.
Yeah.
But, they'll be talking us through how to get to it and how to analyze it. I did one of those classes ages ago. Yeah.
And then at the WCCLS level, there's a lot of interest in this, isn't there? At the county level?
Yes. I think, all of us in government and nonprofits and just everywhere are like really eager to get our hands on that data and know what it is. Yeah. Yeah. So making a list of community members and organizations who are underrepresented in decision making for strategic planning, and that, we need other lists as well, but we didn't do as good of enough job with that list and that part of the process last time around. And I was a lot newer in my job too, and I didn't know as many groups and people then, and the community has changed in that time too. So I invite us to be thinking of, citizens that we know, citizens as in community members of Sherwood, people, organizations, not necessarily all in Sherwood. Sherwood is small enough that a lot of people leave Sherwood to go to community organizations like the Catholic Church in Tigard, for example, that does their mass in Spanish. It's St. Anthony's, I think, and there's the MET, the Muslim Educational. Gosh, I didn't write this all down. Trust, MET, M-E-T. They're in the county as well. There may be a lot of people who live in Sherwood who go out of town, and we usually think of it as the libraries in those communities doing outreach or connecting or partnering with those agencies. But I think we've short-sighted. Or anyway, we have not been reaching out, and I think we need to beyond our borders of Sherwood to find out more about how Sherwood library users and non-library users are, why, what they all need, everything, all of that. So that's on there, and then inviting people to participate. That can be listening sessions, paying special attention to underrepresented voices. And then I want to pursue, I have not known the city to do this, but best practice is really to compensate with some kind of stipend, especially if you're asking people to participate, to share their experience and perspective, let's say, for example, as a person of color, and they're taking time out of their life to do that, they're more likely to have barriers with work schedules and flexibility to even attend. And then if we're not compensating to at least make up for travel or time, it can be a real barrier to participating. So the school district actually has done a little bit of stuff like that, even if it's providing childcare and a meal, for example. It's more than just, can you come do this free work for us? And then create another piece would be beyond the focus groups, creating easy ways to gather feedback and stories from patrons in the moment. So let's say people who are coming on site in the library or at curbside, and really engaging with people and asking maybe a different targeted question every week or every other week or something to get feedback. So shorter than a user survey, less time consuming than the focus group, but another layer of that feedback. And that was actually something over a year ago when I went to the PLA conference in Tennessee, Public Library Association. They were talking about that being really helpful. And then, of course, researching and contracting with consultants, but specifically who have cultural competencies relevant for these listening sessions. For timing, I mean, I'd love it if we could figure that out before the end of this fiscal year, but realistically, I don't know. Actually, I made a mistake here. No, that's right. Summer, no, that has a mistake. That should not say summer 2020. That should say summer 21. How am I doing on time? Am I using way too much of my time? I'm much more talkative than I thought I would be.
You're okay.
Yeah. How much time do I have on this section? Is it till 5:15?
It is.
Okay, good. Okay, thank you. Right. So next category, should I keep going or does anybody have questions or comments? I know I'm not talking about every single thing on here, but I'm trying to get you the detail you need. And I'll email this out too. Keep going. Okay, so under reopening, so for programming, we need to begin staging in-person programs and events. This could be split out into multiple rows at some point, but we'll start outside this summer with small groups. When we do start inside, it will be probably starting with adults and then babies because they're not crawling yet, and then we'll fill in the gaps in between. It'll probably be, frankly, quite some time before we're able to do toddler story time and the fun for ones because those kiddos can't follow the social distancing rules. They're just zooming all over that room and touching everything and mouthing everything and all of that, and they're too young to wear masks. And as sad as it is not to offer that story time in person, so that will continue online. So this is reopening steps. It's going to vary for quite some time. But then in terms of other things with the building, so right now we've pretty much put away all the furniture. We have a few stools out. Some libraries who've been open for a little bit longer than us have figured out, okay, well, they could have a table and a couple chairs, and that can be used by one small group, let's say 2 people, for example, tutoring up to an hour, either first come, first serve or by appointment. And maybe some of the bigger spaces are having 2 of those tables distanced apart. So I hope that we can get to that point relatively soon. And then, of course, increasing the number of people in the library at once. In terms of hours, most likely, so we've got the 2 to 5 p.m. right now, 4 days a week. Most likely our first move would be to add it until 6 p.m. And then this may change later, but I believe our next step would be then to add another hour and go to 7 p.m. We want to also add Mondays in. Right now we've got, there's no curbside on Sundays. There's curbside on Saturday with Express, or there will be this Saturday for the first time. And then you've got Sunday that's just curbside, no Express. And then, or excuse me, I'm saying the wrong thing. Sunday, nothing. Sunday, there's staff working, but there's no curbside. And then Monday, there's only curbside. So we have Sunday and Monday with no Express. So if we could shorten that to only have a 1-day gap, would be the next one to do. And then add morning hours. At some point, we'd still be missing Friday in there too. We'd need to get Friday back into the mix. We used to be open 60 hours a week, and we want to get back to that. We used to be open 7 days a week. We want to get back to that. We also want to have those interactive play areas back, and returning the furniture and remove those cordoned off areas. So all things that you noticed, when if you came to a preview, like, oh, that's not the same. I don't know exactly when we'll be able to do all these things, so I kind of made some best guesses. Some of these we could do just as we get more experience and we figure out how it's working, having more people in, and same with the hours. A lot of that is determined by staff scheduling, which has been really tricky because we're distancing from each other, but then also some staff still have limitations with the school schedules and different things like that. So we'll get there. This is my best guess. It's not that the county is saying we have to be in low risk, but my best guess is that we wouldn't get to our 60 hours a week again until we're in low risk, or maybe even better than that. But I think we can get to 7 days a week with shorter days before we get to 60 hours. And my best guess also for the interactive play areas, I'm just thinking probably, but it could all change. Any questions so far? Okay. So then equity work, some of this is, I think, things I've talked about with you before and some not, but these have all been on my mind. So the policies we have talked about, as we do our policy work, that's just part of the normal work of this board. Every time we're either writing a new policy or revising an existing policy, to do so with an equity lens. And then my recommendation is, before doing actual diving into the strategic plan, that we also have a plan for revisiting our mission statement and our value statements. Last time we did it in the order of revise the mission statement. It was mostly a staff and board process. And then that helped us also to determine values that were still kind of draft values. And then the strategic planning process, which folded in more voices, so we had more community members participating, and that helped us finalize the value statements as well. I wonder if this time around we might want more voices involved in the mission statement, and maybe the mission statement actually works better at the end to say, okay, we did all of this work. What's the short way of saying that? Oh, okay, here's our mission statement. But I'm not sure. It's just an idea I'm thinking about. A mission statement typically isn't updated every time that there's a strategic plan. But on the other hand, it's just the world has changed so much since we last wrote our mission statement, and it doesn't really have the strong equity perspective that I think we would give it if we were doing it today. And then we need to do, as always, just keep doing EDI training with staff. I feel like, we have staff at different levels based on what their experience is and what their jobs are. So the librarian staff are quite invested and have higher level of training in EDI work. And by that I should have said, sometimes I switch between DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, and EDI, equity, diversity, and inclusion, just because 5 years ago, when we were first starting our work, we were calling it DEI, and at the time, both abbreviations were being used equally. And in our strategic plan, it says DEI, but it seems like for the most part in libraries, EDI has risen to the top as the most common abbreviation, which places equity first, which I think makes sense. So I think many of us are ready for that next step for training, bystander training. So let's say something happens in the library at a book group or in the library. Let's say there's some hate speech that happens, and we have some tools for how to interrupt that, and we have our behavior policy, but there's whole trainings you can do on how to react as a bystander, not just, and even bystander, let's say it's not a library function, but I'm out in the world and something happens, and how can I help? And then research justice training is another one that I think we would want to have some of our staff do. I feel like I need that before getting too far into this work. Like, I would want to do some research justice training before doing the listening sessions. And that's where there's really an emphasis on not just doing the same old methods, putting the effort in to get more diverse voices at the table, using stories and qualitative data, not just quantitative data, how to bring diverse voices into the design of the process, which I think is going to be something to think about. I'm not sure how to go about that. So see, I need training. So actually, I've just heard there's a fairly local group based out of Portland, the Coalition for Communities of Color. And you may have seen, they did a report of, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago that was about Washington County in particular, but they just did a research justice training that some of my colleagues have gone to. I'm hoping to do one through them. And then we've got create a specific onboarding for new staff on the equity work to date, direction we're heading. We're doing recruitment right now for on-call staff, and I realize we haven't hired anybody new since 2019, which is really unusual for us. Usually we have more hiring going on. And then have a modified version for volunteers, board members, I think the friends as well. And then of course there's always more to do. I'm thinking there could be more in this list, but I wrote down investigate more ways to support staff and volunteers of color and historically marginalized groups and build allyship within staff. I don't know yet how to go about that, but I feel like it needs to be part of our work and we need to figure it out. So, and then that brings us to our last category about technology. Any questions so far?
No.
Okay. So then access to technology. Let me see, can I get, there we go. So some things are just kind of more to-dos. Like we had some stuff actually postponed from last fiscal year that because of the pandemic and workload and so on just hasn't been done yet. So there's content creation software. We have OPAC, which is the catalog computers, online public access catalog. We have plans to put one in the stacks on the end of one of the nonfiction, and that will help with social distancing too. So we just need to make sure we get those things done. We want to increase the number of computer appointments available. We want to add computer appointments in the library proper. Right now they're just on Chromebooks in the community room, and we're relatively close to being able to do both of those things. We also want to add drop-in or no appointment needed computer use. Right now we're operating off of computer appointments only. Pardon me. And it's not even computer appointments necessarily, like call us and you get one in the next 30 minutes. It might not be until another day or next week because of our limited staff who's doing those right now. And then the last one is offer one-on-one tech help services again. So we haven't been doing that yet because of social distancing, but I think with vaccines, full vaccination coming, and we've got the plexiglass shields, and we need to figure out a little bit more with technology. Normally you're sitting right next to somebody like you would if you were even closer than tutoring, really, because you're sharing, looking at a screen and saying, here's what you need to do, click here, do this. And so we're still figuring out how to do that, but that's a need for sure. Whew, that was a lot of talking for me. I need a drink of my beverage. My throat is very dry. I guess hold on, but I welcome any questions. I am still here. Yep. Jean, what's your question?
I will support any movement for people to be vaccinated and that they realize that it's important. I will be much more comfortable when I know people are vaccinated. And so that'll be the position I take when they come into the library or wherever they're going.
Well, do you mean patrons or staff?
No, everybody. You know,
everybody.
that we wear masks and that we're vaccinated and we're prepared to show and we have confirmation that we've been vaccinated. That will be important to me.
That's an interesting one. So I mean, I agree personally. And then as a government worker, you know, we have to follow HIPAA, of course. And so, like, so as staff, I'm not permitted to share with the public, you know, how many of our staff are vaccinated. I don't keep a list. I know, and the culture on the library staff is, you know, you might guess, like, you know, we follow a lot of data and science, and then you can guess where that would lead us. And so, you know, library staff for the most part are really wanting to be vaccinated. We have a number of staff. I'm being very careful. Like, I'm referring to my memory of, like, what was I told I can say? I can say that we have, you know, a high number of staff who are getting vaccines. It was only just recently that the bulk of the staff were eligible, so we haven't made it through. Of those people who want to, we haven't all made it through the second round and that wait period yet. And I think once we get through that, we'll have a lot more that staff will be comfortable doing too. But we would never, as staff, have like a sticker or a name badge that says I've been vaccinated. Or at least not that the city would require, and the city wouldn't require that that we share that information. If you were to ask me personally while I'm at work, can I just share about my own vaccination? I can do that, but I can't share anybody else's. And then for the public, I mean, that's not really my job to say, but as of right now, there's no rules I've heard of saying that people would be limited to come in to like a program or anything unless they're vaccinated. I don't believe we would have a right to do that if we can't even do that with staff, even if we wanted to, which I'm not suggesting we should. But was that you, Stephen?
Yeah, I was gonna say, Jane, I mean, what would you think about, it's a softer touch and it's more about influence than requiring, but just if the library is providing, I don't know, what would it be, like resources, or if people come and patrons come in, there's resources available in terms of education on why to get vaccinated or how to get vaccinated, right? Maybe that's a softer touch that would be aligned to, the requirements you have to follow. Adrian.
Well, I'm not asking you to tell
That's
me
a really good
who's
point.
vaccinated. That's not what I was saying. I'm just saying I will feel much more confident and comfortable when I know people are vaccinated. I mean, I'm not asking you to tell me who is and who isn't. That's not what I was saying. So,
Well, providing educational materials about vaccinations is something we would normally be doing. I mean, about anything, like say about taxes or the census or any other major initiative of the government, that we would often have educational materials about. So we could do that. I like that, Stephen. I don't know where to put it yet, so I'm just creating this other section. Any other comments in terms of these categories or the work or anything Jane said?
Yeah, and then, I mean, there's a big, you have the equity thing here. I mean, it'd be great if those resources were available, right, in several languages to just some of the other points we're making as well.
Oh, the vaccination? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we have posters right now, but there's a lot more we could put. Actually, the posters, we have access to posters in I don't want to say 6 to 8 different languages, but I don't know if I need to check if we've posted those. Our bulletin boards have posters right now in multiple languages, but I think it's mostly about the masks. Yes, Jane.
I was just going to say something about the bulletin boards because I think ours are well managed. They're correct. They're full of information. And are they going to be up? Because for a long time, they were removing anything that had a touch point, that there weren't going to be things out for people to take. So that's changed and you can have bulletin boards.
So right now we have in the library area, we have 2 main bulletin board areas, and one of them in the lobby has been there all along. It's not getting visited very much because the lobby, didn't get a lot of traffic. And then the other set, which the library managed, that's in that breezeway between Sesame Donuts and the library. So if you wanted to take a shortcut, those walls there, those are inaccessible right now because of us needing to have space for quarantining materials and having curbside set up on Pine Street. But I think there's a future not so long from now where we won't need curbside to take up so much space. And then I need to remember to tell you about quarantining. I'm just going to write that on here. That's changing to quarantine. Where we can let patrons have access to those other bulletin boards too. But I agree. I mean, the bulletin boards are a huge part of our public service. A lot of people rely on that information. And then we also have a number of flyers and so on. A lot of those we still have out. So because because everybody's wearing a mask once they're in, we're really not worried about our flyers and our handouts about social services or book recommendations or those sorts of things. We had been quarantining materials that went home with people and came back. And then I think I was saying this before we actually started recording, that was the latest CDC guidance on quarantining and the state of Oregon's interpretation and the Washington County Public Health interpretation and the epidemiologists for both of those organizations have all said libraries no longer need to quarantine library materials. And so then WCCLS just yesterday, anyway, they just announced that we no longer have to quarantine materials. So we just started checking things in faster. It's going to take us a while to get caught up and the rest of the county to get caught up. And again, staff are wearing a mask at all times. We're hand washing frequently. We're using hand sanitizer frequently. The science says that we don't need to quarantine any longer. In terms of the public, there's a natural lag anyway. Let's say, Jane, you return a library book. By the time it gets checked in and gets shelved, it's going to be more than 24 hours anyway. It's just that a staff person was touching it in between, or if it has another hold, by the time that person gets their hold notification and is able to come in, it could be, they might not come in right away. So, or they come in the next day. So from a patron perspective, things are really still sitting for that amount of time. But from staff perspective, there's a change. So anyway, I needed to tell you that. It was kind of a little add-in in the middle of this. So the bulletin boards we may have access to again here soon because we won't have to store as much stuff back there with the quarantining. Did I interrupt somebody else or did I lose a train of thought? I feel like there was one other point. There was something or a question that somebody asked. No? Okay. Overall thoughts on these themes? Like if I go over to here, for example, and what I don't want to do is say, here's Adrian's plan. It's not supposed to be that. We also are still in this period where we can't do our full strategic plan, but yet we still need focus. And I do rely on this group to help us prioritize. And so for example, if I go back to this one, with distribution of physical materials, Wi-Fi and technology, services for seniors, and marketing, do you feel like we're ready to move past these priorities and start with these others?
Can you go back to the current priorities, Adrian?
Yep.
Okay.
This is on our website too. Let me grab that. Here's the current priorities that I just put in the chat also.
From my perspective, it looks, I can't see the bottom of the Wi-Fi one, but there we go. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Mobile hotspots. And we got the Chromebooks, correct? For our.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it looks, everything is good, except for I'm not sure a couple of times we talked about partnering more with senior services, and I'm not sure where that is.
We've done some with that, not as much as we originally were talking about. I think since last we spoke, I don't know that there's been a ton more. So we've Crystal and Crystal, was it you and Adam presented at the senior advisory board meeting. Is that what it's called? Yeah. And so that happened. We haven't had the more in-depth conversation with Maya, for example, about how to do more collaboration. I think a way to do that is to not say, hey, we're stopping, we're not doing that, but rather if we come back over in here in the strategic planning and community engagement, and when we're at this one, make list of community members and organizations. So seniors, I think you could make a strong argument the seniors have been underrepresented in the decision making for strategic planning here, and even if they weren't, like we still need we need our other stakeholders, so they're also stakeholders here, to invite them to listening sessions. So I think rather than saying, hey, let's pause this other strategic planning work while we work on boosting our senior services or services for seniors, rather we fold that work into the strategic planning and we do listening sessions with them. I'm like, what do you need? How can the library help solve that or help make that better? And then that informs the next strategic plan, as well as whatever, we may get some ideas that we can implement right away. Does that make sense? I see two hands. I apologize. I didn't see who did it first. Does it tell me? Fritz, you raised your hand first.
Okay. I have a question on, for what percentage of the library patrons are, say, 65 and older? Do you have that number?
I don't have that in my head. It's a really good question.
Is it a substantial number or?
It's below average for the state because Sherwood actually has a higher than average percentage of youth than most communities. It's, considered a family town. And so all those kids skew the data for how many seniors there are. And then I know a lot of seniors who are looking for like assisted living or aging in place options had been moving out of Sherwood. I mean, at council, you've talked about this a lot, right? That there's, I think there are more options now than there were last time we were doing strategic planning. I hear, and there's a new assisted living facility in town. There's a different focus on housing and development for having options that work well for downsizing. Let's say you're in a big family home and now you're retired and your kids are adults and moved out, and how can you stay in Sherwood and not have a huge house, So those sorts of things have shifted.
Okay. So my next question is, so if someone is a senior, let's say 65 and over, and they're a part of WCCLS, like they live in Tigard and they move to Sherwood, that doesn't change any of the, they're considered a senior within WCCLS, but there would be an address change. Are address changes always looked at regularly into Sherwood?
Yes. So we have.
Okay. I just want to know how current the information is for actual Sherwood or the Sherwood service area residents.
It should be very current, and we're a little bit behind on that compared to usual because there were some data cleanup projects that were postponed during the pandemic, but we do get a report from the U.S. Postal Service on addresses that have changed, and we can cross-reference, we give them our list of addresses and they say, oh, that one's changed, and then we cross-reference it and we can update. And then we normally would be asking every year for an address check, but that was postponed during the pandemic just because people were mostly using ebooks anyway. So normally it's at least once a year, and then even, people usually let us know if they move, even if we don't ask them. So their home library, as soon as someone says, I want to pick up my holds in Sherwood instead of Tigard in that example, then we would be updating their address. Jean, what was your question?
Well, since we met last, the City of Sherwood's Community Enhancement money gave the Senior Center a lot of money, and they have money also, and they're going to buy a van, which will greatly improve transportation. Because I don't think anytime soon TriMet's going to help us have a route that is more responsive to the needs of people in Sherwood. So I'm pretty happy to hear that. I still drive a car, but there's people that will want to come to the library, and I bet they will ask for the senior citizen van, and it will be part of the city's system. So it's very good news. Very good news.
That's great. I saw that news and I hadn't really thought about people using it for library visits, but that's a really good point.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
good point. Thank you, Jane. Any other thoughts? Do you generally feel comfortable with these categories? If I were to come next time, oh, somebody was just talking. Yes? No? I could come to the next meeting with these categories with them filled in, and I mean with more staff input too. So Melanie, you brought up the point about seniors. What do you think about that idea of it getting folded into the strategic planning process?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great idea because the best thing always is to ask what their needs are. Like you said, have a listening session and find out what that is, and then we can talk about implementing that.
Okay, good. All right. Well, thank you. I think at this point it's not really anything to vote on necessarily or anything, but if you're all giving a thumbs up. Is that accurate? Yeah. Okay. All right. Yay. Super. Thank you. So I will work on this and bring forward to the next meeting more detail and more staff input on it. And thank you. It's really exciting to have the next stage started.
Fantastic. We can give Adrienne a little break now. She deserves it. And we'll move on to council updates with Renee.
All right, let me pull up my notes here. Okay, I think the couple of big ones you probably have already heard, but the city manager, Joe Gall, has accepted a new position with, I can't remember what it's called.
Clean Water Services.
Yes, I was going to say something else. Yeah, Clean Water Services. So he's with us until mid-May, and then he's going to be leaving for that new role. We're excited for him, but what that means is that we're on a hunt for a new city manager. We have hired a firm to help assist us in that process. Another update is it's budget season. So I'm sure Adrienne and her team have been working very hard on putting together the budget. So we will be having budget hearings on the 20th, the 27th of May, and the 3rd of June if needed to be able to pass a budget for the city of Sherwood. Another bit of exciting news, at least I think it's exciting, is that at our council goal session, the idea of council being involved in the DEI statement or equity work came up, and Councilor Garland and I have offered to draft a DEI statement to get it started. We did draft something, and both Adrienne and Crystal have given their input, so we need to take that input and work the statement a little bit more to be able to present something cohesive for council to consider. But it's better late than never to start the conversation at the council level, so I'm excited about that. Let's see, the comprehensive plan for the city of Sherwood is close to completion. So we should have a complete comprehensive plan by the end of summer. So that's exciting. That will basically direct the work of council going forward and the direction for staff as well. So that's exciting. we will be having at the next meeting, of which I will not be there because I'll be on vacation, the Washington County LIP, local implementation plan. There will be an update to the city of Sherwood, and that is directly in relation to the Metro bond that passed last spring regarding supportive housing services. So that directly affects the work that I do. So I'm excited for that on multiple levels, but I'm excited for council to get more information for that, so that again we can continue to plan effectively. A couple of other things. The recreation comprehensive master plan is coming down the pike, so that'll be voted on this summer. We also have a new URA plan that's coming down this summer, which will allow us to do some work and construction in the city. For instance, a possible new public works facility. It could, could potentially mean something for the library down the road. There's different factors that will play into that. And I think that's the most exciting up-to-date news. I'll take any questions that you might have. All right. Thank you. Yeah.
I have a question for you. And I'm thinking about the city manager recruitment. So since it's a council so the city manager reports to the council, just to say that for anybody that doesn't know, since it's a council-led process, we're not hearing very much trickle down yet. And I'm wondering, have you heard yet if there will be a plan for staff beyond the leadership group to, like, say, a meet and greet or anything like that to interact with the top candidates when it gets closer to the end of the process, or maybe even for other community members?
There is definitely a plan for more involvement. I was trying to pull up the email. The first phase is interview with council and some leadership staff and some community stakeholders. I don't have the list of staff who will be interviewed, but that's the first phase. And so once that's done, then the posting, or then a post will go out probably mid-May, and then we hope to have that position hired by the end of summer. But somewhere along the path, all the staff will be able to have a meet and greet. There'll be community stakeholder engagement processes as well. But I can't remember what phase that's in. I don't know if that's the preliminary candidates or probably second phase candidates, but there's a well outlined process with lots of opportunity for people to weigh in on what makes the most sense. Now, having said that, so as the representative, I consider part of the role as a counselor to be a liaison between the city, the community, and the staff who are also supervised by the city manager. So if there are key things that are important to you as a city staff member to share with the consultant, please give me a call. I'd be happy to talk to you. I'm interviewing with her on Saturday morning. So I want to throw that out there. Same thing with you as citizens of Sherwood. If there are specific qualities that you want as a city manager, please let me know, because I will again use that information to share with the consultant as I speak to her on Saturday. Hopefully that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Renee. That's helpful.
Yeah, no problem.
It's exciting too, really.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Awesome. Any other questions for Councilor Browse? And we can move on. I don't think we have any public comment, do we?
No, I did not receive any public comment.
Okay, do we have any additional business? Nobody wants to give us the business. Then on that note, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.